Hello and welcome to Maverick Mastery episode 14. In this series, we go through certain question types that commonly appear in CAT. And for this week, we will be looking at FIB paragraph-based questions. Let's start. There will be 5 questions that I will solve, and there will be 5 questions that I will give for you as practice, the answers of which will be present in the description box below. Let's start. Okay. Now, the way I prefer solving it is, I first read through the paragraph, see if there are any humongous changes in thought, humongous changes in stream of conversation that is happening. If at all there is, then I put the blank there. I put that down as, okay, this is where potentially a new idea can come in. After I've read through the entire paragraph, I go back and read the sentence and then try to fit it in. This way has served me well in the CAT exam so far. Okay, let's see. The past of the Northeast Indian community comes down from generation to generation through language, music, songs, dance, rituals, beliefs, practices, and a great variety of narratives, tales, stories, and myths. The place is too complex as a whole terrain of Northeast is fascinating. Okay. If something comes in this blank, it has to be related to these things: language, music, song, dance, rituals, beliefs. So many different ideas, so many different markers of culture are given. Okay. The place, Northeast, is too complex as a whole terrain of Northeast is fascinating, especially for an ethnographer to apply them. And yes, this is wonderful, as in it does seem like something should come in blank one, because previously we were talking of cultural aspects of the community, and now we're talking of terrain. The switch from cultural aspects to terrain seems a little weird, but okay. Ethnographer is somebody who records ethnicities of different populations of different regions. In the context of regions' engagement with the larger Indian landscape, diversity and preservation may be the lens through which Northeast should be understood. Okay. Now in the second blank, the place is too complex as the terrain of the Northeast is fascinating, especially for the ethnographer to apply their mind. This should have some description of the terrain, some description of terrain, because remember the previous line says whole terrain of Northeast is fascinating. Why is it fascinating? What makes it fascinating? That should come in blank too. In the context of regions' engagement with the larger Indian landscape, diversity and preservation may be the lens through which Northeast should be understood. The myths, the legends, the history of Northeast date back to antiquity. 3 will not be a blank, that should have something, because it should be understood, something, the lens through which Northeast should be understood. And then the myths, the legends, that is basically the lens that is being referred in the earlier line. So 3 should not have anything in between. This region has been inhabited by early settlers till 2000 BC. The first recorded mention of this region may be found in the narrative of Hyun Sang, who visited the court of Assamese king Bhaskar Varman in the first half of the 7th century. Again, this is a very historical sort of line. This region has been inhabited by earlier settlers since 2000 BC. And then earlier settlers and the first recorded mention seems appropriate. So 1 or 2. 1 should have something to do with the cultural aspects mentioned in the statement prior, and 2 should have something to do with terrain. Now, when we look at the sentence, these are the elements that constitute the thickness or density of Northeast Indian history. Okay. And I would say this fits best in blank 1, because here we needed something with regards to terrain. Here we needed something with regards to the cultural aspects. And these are the elements of culture that constitute the thickness or density of Northeast Indian history. Option 1 will be the right answer for this question. Okay. Moving on to the next one now. The dismal performance of industry was mainly on account of the slack in the manufacturing sector. They're saying there has been some shortfall. Slack means shortfall or deficit. The dismal performance of the industry was mainly on account of the deficit in the manufacturing sector. The output in the manufacturing sector, the largest segment of industry, has remained almost stagnant. While they're talking of deficit in the previous one, in the second idea, see, deficit would be between input and output, or expectation of output and output. That is where the deficit should lie. So The fact that they're saying output has remained almost stagnant is a continuation of this thought. But here we will, if at all something comes in this blank, it will continue to be talking of slack. The growth of this segment fell sharply from 11.1% to 1.3%. Okay, there should be nothing here at all. Because see, the previous line was the output in the manufacturing sector has remained almost stagnant. And then the growth of this segment fell sharply from 11.1% to 1.3%. Almost stagnant means there has been a negligible change in the overall size of the manufacturing sector, and 1.3% change is also a negligible change in the overall size of the manufacturing sector. So 2 should have nothing mentioned there. In fact, the trends over the last 5 years show that 3.5% growth averaged by the manufacturing was lower than that of agriculture, where growth was a higher 4%. Okay. Now, this portion starts with in fact. After 1.3, starting with in fact, seems very, very weird. This is statistical statement. The growth of the segment fell sharply from 11.1% to 1.3%. And then, well, in fact, the trends over the last 5 years show that 3.5% growth averaged by the manufacturing was lower than that of the agriculture, where the growth was higher 4%. Okay. The manufacturing sectors seem to have clearly gone down in the notes. There should be nothing in 4. There can be something here which will make it sensible. I don't know what should be here, but what will make it sensible here, as in for in fact, there has to be another statement present in blank 3 to make sense. Now the given sentence is, this sharp fall was unsurprising. And that makes it very, very apparent. The sharp fall being referenced in the original sentence is 11.1% to 1.3%. This is the sharp fall being talked of. So it comes here. The sharp fall was unsurprising. In fact, the trends over the last 5 years, okay, sharp fall is unsurprising, and then the trends, the data to support the fact that this is unsurprising is presented in the next statement. The answer to this question should be option 3. Okay. Next question now. Apart from the stagnant structure of industry, the other more important reason for worry is the continued slump in consumption. Okay. There is stagnant structure of industry, which is a reason for worry. There is also continued slump in consumption. The demand for goods is going down. The national income estimates show that while levels of both government and private consumption expenditure fell in 2022-23, the levels of investments picked up. One should not have anything in between. We've talked of a continued slump in consumption, and then we've talked of both government and private consumption expenditure fell. So continued slump and then private and government consumption fell. This is what has been talked of. The levels of investments picked up. Blank. The government's final consumption expenditure at current prices fell by almost a percentage point to 10.3%, the lowest in 6 years. Okay. This also seems like nothing should be here. Both government and private expenditure fell. Then government's final consumption expenditure. 2 things have fallen. Then in the next sentence, we're talking of the first thing that has fallen. And then we're talking of, however, the aspect that is of grave concern is the shrinkage in the size of the private consumption, which accounts for bulk of the demand in the economy. So something, if there is a however here, again, this is an indication, there must be, as in, while it can come right after 3, you can potentially have something here. It is okay if there was nothing in 3. It is okay if there was nothing in 3, because they've talked of the decline in the government's final expenditure, and then they've talked of private sector. For 4, you can't really claim whether it can be filled up or not filled up. So both these spots remain. Now, looking at the sentence, this fall can also be traced to the sustained fiscal consolidation efforts of the union government. And that makes it very, very clear. It should be option 3. Because see, the line about the government's effort is here. Then you have a government line. Then you have the private consumption line. It would make sense. You can't have the government line, the private consumption line, and then talk of the union government consolidation efforts. It has to be 3. It has to be option C for the third question as well. Okay. Next question now. It is in this context that the Law Commission's report on sedition requires newfound legal and political significance. Now, sedition is, my best understanding of sedition is minor form of treason. Basically, you claim and act against the interests of your native country. So it is in this context that the Law Commission's report on sedition requires a newfound legal and political significance. Okay, blank. The report is fairly wide-ranging, covering historical and contemporary and comparative aspects of laws relating to sedition. If at all something comes here, it should be related to the report only. First line talks of report, third line talks of report. So if there is something in this blank, it should be related to report only. The report is fairly wide-ranging, covering historical, contemporary, and comparative aspects of laws relating to sedition. It discusses the Constituent Assembly debates on sedition, the judicial interpretations of this provision in the post-independence India, especially in the case of Kedarnath v. State of Bihar 1962, which upheld the constitutionality of sedition. Again, this will go into specific details of what is contained within the report. This is going to be an overarching statement about report. This is going to be specific details mentioned within the report. Specific report details. I'm not writing details, I don't have space, but specific report details, overarching statement about report. Okay. So in the case of Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar 1962, the constitutionality of sedition was upheld. The report argues in favor of retaining section 124A in the IPC on mainly 5 grounds. Okay. This will again have something to do with report. But this blank, if something comes here, it has to be the grounds. The previous statement was the report argues in favor of retaining section 124A in the IPC on mainly 5 grounds. So the next statement, the next idea that gets covered here should be about those grounds only. Okay, let's see, where are we going from here? The statement. It also discusses sedition in relation to freedom of speech, as well as comparing the history, the provision of sedition in India with other countries such as United States, United Kingdom, UK, Australia, and Canada. Okay. This is very, very simple. Look at this. This line here was, it discusses the Constituent Assembly. And then starting line here, it also discusses. So it has to be here that we have our given sentence included. It has to be option C. Okay. And the last question that I will be solving. It's happening again in Darfur. This is in Syria or Sudan. This is in Sudan. It's happening again in Darfur. Scene of genocide that killed 3 lakh people and displaced millions 20 years ago. Armed militia are on the rampage once more. Blank. Now, as then, they are targeting ethnic African tribes, murdering, raping, and stealing with impunity. They are nomadic, ethnic Arab raiders, the much feared devils on horseback, except now they ride in trucks. They were called Janjaweed. And then there is something, a blank. The problem is, every place seems to be very, very smoothly flowing. It seems like none of the blanks really need anything. Let me read this. And now they are back. Could it be in one? Armed militia are on the rampage once more. And now they are back. Would make sense. They are targeting now, as then they are targeting ethnic African tribes, murdering, raping, and stealing with impunity. Okay. They are nomadic, ethnic Arab raiders, much feared devils on horseback, except now they ride in trucks. And now they are back. They were called the Janjaweed. and now they are back. So see, in 2 doesn't make sense because now as then they were targeting ethnic African tribes, murdering, raping, and stealing with impunity. They are nomadic. They is mentioned here also. They is mentioned here also. But they is mentioned here also. This they is also given a reference here. So now I'm left with, and now except they now riding trucks, and now they are back. See, if the last idea was what they are doing correctly, and then we say now they are back, it wouldn't make sense. The 2 options where this blank can come, and now they are back. Here it would be in reference to armed militia. Here it would be in reference to Janjaweed. So let's read. It happened once again in Darfur, scene of genocide that killed 3 lakh people and displaced millions 20 years ago. Armed militias are on the rampage once more. And now they are back. Again, this wouldn't make sense. Armed militia are on the rampage once more. So we're talking of the current state. And now they are back. Wouldn't make sense. The best spot where it can come. They were called Janjaweed and now they are back. They is in reference to Janjaweed. The correct answer for this question will be option D, or option D 4. Okay, so that is all the 5 questions, and hopefully you understand where the reasoning or narrowing down of options, making predictions about what should come in the blank, all that processing, how that works. To the best of my ability, whatever goes on in my head, I've shared with you. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, then maybe we need to develop something of our own. Now, there are 5 questions that I expect you to practice. I will display them and they will be on the screen for a little while. What I expect you to do is when the question is displayed, you pause it, you solve it. Then the next question is displayed, you pause it, you solve it. Once all your solving is done, you can look at the official answers that are present in the description. Okay, 1. Next question now. Next question now. Next question now. Next question now. And that is all the questions that all the 5 questions that you are supposed to practice. I have displayed. Hopefully you learned something from this video and you got some practice questions also. Hopefully it enhances your skills. See you in the next episode.